So, is this just happenstance? Well, let's look at more of the numbers. And by the way, Mr. Bowie is a minister and a reserve deputy sheriff and a leader of that community, and he's the one that's been tracking this and showing everybody. So some of the numbers, first the one he mentioned in the video, 15 houses on that street on Penn Road, 11 people died of cancer. Now, it's not just older folks, it's that, as you saw in the video there, a 43-year-old gets cancer, dies, okay? And it's not just that road. A nearby school ranked #1 in the country for being exposed to substances that lead to cancer. They are, and you see it with your own eyes. There it is. It's in that reservoir that they've created, and they're putting that pollution in, and the steam is coming out, and it's killing folks. So when they say, yes, less regulation, think about Penn Road. Think about that community in Arkansas. That has real effects, and sometimes deadly effects. That's the effect of them buying the politicians. Now, how do they get the EPA to back off? Instead of doing their job and saying, hey, wait a minute now, the community's being hurt. We're supposed to represent the citizens. Instead, they turn a blind eye. How do they do that? They buy the politicians that we were talking about. In fact, here's KochBrothersExposed.com telling you exactly which politicians they are, and they got them on tape. Watch this.
The Koch brothers basically buy an anti-environmental Congress that has single-handedly tried to eviscerate and gut environmental regulation across the board.
I'm proud of the work Koch Industries brings to my district.
It's cheap at the price. It's certainly a lot less expensive than actually having to retrofit factories.
The EPA will have doors locked and the lights turned off.
Koch Industries not only manipulates the political process, but more importantly to me is they manipulate the public into believing that the EPA is killing jobs.
The EPA is intent on taking matters into their own hands, which will result in a bleeding of jobs.
It is a problem when politicians are calling EPA and saying leave them alone, rather than calling them and saying do your job and clean it up.
Workers in my state don't want to see the lost jobs that EPA's big government takeover would bring.
They're sickening, man. They use jobs as an excuse because they all get paid by the Koch brothers to look the other way as people actually get sick and some of them die. Those are the real life consequences of our broken system where these guys can buy our politicians to do their bidding. There is a real life consequence, and I'm glad someone's at least exposing it. The whole media should be doing this all across the country. They should be finding people who are actually affected by these laws and regulations and how the Koch brothers have put an end to those things and are trying to shut down the EPA, trying to shut down protections for citizens. It's really grotesque what they're doing.
Uncle Joe, are you getting sick yet? Are you getting sick yet? These are the owners of the country. Two of the richest men in the world. And hey, what they want, all they want to do is manipulate the public. They want you to jump around. Oh, we want our freedom. We want our liberty. Hey, they want to take. They want to take from you because they don't want to pay to have to clean this crap up. If they got to clean it up, that's profit. That's profit that's not going in their pocket like they could ever spend it. You know? But anyway, now we're going to show you the Harvard economist, just so you get an idea of what these guys are all about. So, John, hit it. I think that's the wrong one again.
We've built a political process in America where money is an extraordinarily important driver of policy. So the Koch brothers have an extraordinary influence just because of their willingness to spend the amount of money they're willing to spend in both contributions and directed independent expenditures and in events that facilitate, quote, understanding around their issues. The Koch brothers obviously have very strong interest in minimizing the extent of environmental regulation. And so they have a very strong interest in influencing members of committees who oversee environmental regulation.
We will get rid of onerous regulations.
Then that deregulation is just allowing them to get something for nothing. They get to use our environments without paying the cost of using our environment.
Stopping this regulation is the way to make sure that agencies realize they can't overreach.
They've recognized that policymaking is cheap, and the return on investments in policymaking is high.
To regulate CO2 under the Clean Air Act is wrong and should not be allowed to stand.
And politicians, it turns out, are willing to sell policy at a very low rate.
Joe, are you starting to get the idea? Is it starting to sink in yet? Do you realize how you've been bought? You've been bought and paid for. Yeah, bought and paid for. You've been duped. You've been sold a bill of goods for freedom and prosperity. Oh, Joe, I tell you. Guys, we're not going to stop. We're going to go right to the next clip, and we're just going to keep pouring it on. So, John, hit it.
Hello, I'm Robert Greenwald. The Koch brothers Exposed is our latest Brave New Foundation campaign. The size and the scope of what the Koch brothers are trying to do is unprecedented in the history of our country.
These people are destroying America.
They bankrolled the Tea Party movement.
Barack Obama means Antichrist.
Global warming is probably the greatest hoax ever perpetrated on the American people.
An exclusive report links the billionaire Koch brothers to Governor Walker. Surprise, surprise.
I have not yet begun to fight.
Kochs are meeting here in private, and they're influencing our politics. It's dirty money that's influencing our politics.
Join us in fighting back. Join us in taking action. Join us in doing something about it. Become a producer. We need your help.
So what do you say, Joe? You ready to throw in the towel yet? Huh? There's plenty of room. There's plenty of room on the progressive bus. You're welcome anytime, but we're not going to stop. We're going to keep it up. We're going to go right to the next clip on the Koch brothers. So, John, hit it.
The Koch brothers are the poster boys for the 1%.
We have 15 homes in this area, and maybe 11 people has died with cancer.
What they're actually trying to do is dismantle the whole public school system.
The Koch brothers support laws that are the most aggressive attempt to roll back voting rights in this country that we've seen in over a century.
You buy yourself a Congress that has single-handedly tried to eviscerate environmental regulation across the board.
The Koch brothers are funding think tanks spreading an enormous amount of disinformation about Social Security.
Once we expose Koch brothers, that unlocks the door.
We need
That's
to pay
when citizens
attention
get
to what the
step
Koch
into
brothers
it.
are doing. We need to care about what the Koch brothers are doing because it is affecting us.
We should have. We're not going to be fooled anymore.
Joey, you have enough yet, kid? You know, we're hitting Joe with so many lefts, you'd think by now he'd be begging for a right, you know? Hey, Rich, change up the... But no, we're not going to change it up. We're going to hit you with more because you deserve it. John, roll the next one.
Meet the Koch brothers, oil magnates worth $21.5 billion each, founders of the second biggest private company in America, owners of the fabric Lycra, and heavy investors in chemical fertilizers, pulp, and sawmills. They're also passionate funders of anti-global warming groups, which led Greenpeace last year to dub them climate science denial kingpins. Their credits go way back. In 1990, when the US government threatened an air pollution crackdown, the Kochs financed a group called Concerned Citizens for the Environment, which produced a study claiming acid rain didn't exist. Koch Industries is one of the top 10 biggest air polluters in America. 7 years later, the Kochs met more regulation by citing a study that argued smog protects us from skin cancer. The Kochs financed the think tank that wrote it. For 8 years, the brothers poured cash into high-profile anti-green lobby group, the Competitive Enterprise Institute, which sponsored the 1997 Countdown to Kyoto Climate Skeptic Conference in Canberra, attended by then-Deputy PM Tim Fischer. In Australia, the Kochs have interest in carpets, chemical technology and fertiliser, with offices in Victoria and New South Wales. At last count, they had spent $196 million underwriting more than 37 groups to campaign against regulating business in the United States. Among them, the Institute for Humane Studies, Frontiers of Freedom, and the Independent Women's Forum. White House staff nicknamed this network the Kochtopus. In 2007, leaving no environmental symbol unchallenged, the Kochs financed a study claiming polar bears aren't being hurt by climate change. But the environment isn't the Kochs' only interest. In 2003, they founded Americans for Prosperity, major backers of the Tea Party movement. AFP has opposed regulating executive bonuses, big tobacco, and resisted healthcare reform. South Australian Senator Cory Bernardi has said he admires the Tea Party's free-ranging grassroots activism. Menzies House, one group he founded to stir the pot, is run by Tim Andrews, who worked for the Koch-funded Americans for Tax Reform, the Koch-funded Cato Institute, and was trained by the Koch Associate Program. Last month, the LA Times reported the billionaire brothers now sit at the center of Republican power. Washington newspaper Politico says they plan to spend $88 million dethroning Obama next year, and they're currently sponsoring the biggest ever study on global temperature change. The Koch brothers. Money can't buy you love, but it can buy you a convenient truth when you need one.
All right, Joe. What are you going to do now? You tell me what you're gonna do. We laid our cards on the table. You've seen what we have to offer. You can understand how you're being bought. You can understand how you're being paid for. And you can understand where it's coming from. And from now on, when you hear the words Koch brothers, one thing you want to do, that's it. And that's being nice. And then you want to throw up a little question mark after that. And you want to think about your kids and your grandkids.